I woke up to silence, but my mirror was screaming. Where my long chestnut hair used to cascade down past my shoulders, there were now jagged, uneven clumps, like someone had taken dull scissors to a paper doll. Except the doll was me. At first, I thought I'd been attacked. A break-in? A sick prank? But the door was locked. My window shut. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. Just one thing left behind on my dresser, a pair of old craft scissors. The ones my mom used to cut coupons. And next to them, a sticky note in her handwriting. You'll still look fine. Just focus on your speech for Chelsea's big day. I'm Olivia Carter. I'm 26. I work in communications, pay my own rent, and haven't lived with my parents since I was 19. But no matter how far I go, I never quite escape the role I was cast in from birth, the manageable daughter. The one who doesn't rock the boat. The one who's supposed to stay quiet while her sister, Chelsea, shines. This wedding was supposed to be my one moment. I'd saved up for the navy silk dress. I'd rewritten the maid of honor speech 10 times. I was finally ready to be seen. Instead, I was drugged with sleepy time tea laced with Benadryl. And woke up looking like someone had tried to erase me. When I walked into the kitchen, my dad didn't even flinch. Less hair makes your face look softer. Less distracting. My mom added, "It's not about you, Olivia. Let your sister shine." That's when I knew, they didn't just cut my hair. They cut me out of the narrative. But here's what they didn't realize. 3 weeks earlier, I'd recorded something by accident. Something that would turn this wedding upside down. What would you do if the people who raised you tried to shut you down like this? I'm honestly curious, share your thoughts below. It didn't take long for the shock to wear off. Maybe 10 minutes. That was all I needed to go from stunned silence to a cold, creeping realization, they had planned this. Not in a heat-of-the-moment way, not out of drunken spite, but something colder. Premeditated. Controlled. Strategic. The scissors weren't tossed aside. They were placed. Deliberately. And that note? That wasn't guilt. That was dismissal. Condescension dressed up as concern. You'll still look fine, like I was some doll they could reshape and repackage. Focus on your speech, like the betrayal was nothing more than a cosmetic inconvenience. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the shredded strands still clinging to my pillow, my fingertips brushing them like they might reattach. Like maybe I could go back. Like maybe I was dreaming. But this was no dream. This was a message. They wanted me small. They always had. It wasn't the first time they tried to silence me. Just the first time they used scissors. I remembered being 6, standing in the kitchen with orange juice on my shirt, while my mom knelt down and said gently, "Don't be too loud, sweetheart. Chelsea gets overwhelmed." It wasn't harsh. That's what made it stick. It sounded like love. Like care. But it was the beginning of a lesson I didn't know I was learning. Shrink to be loved. Dim to be safe. Years later, Chelsea won a regional violin competition. She was 13. They bought her a cake, threw her a backyard party. Balloons. String lights. A DJ from Craigslist. That same year, I made the state finals in debate. No cake. No party. No one even came to watch. At the time, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. They were busy. Debate wasn't artsy. Maybe I hadn't told them early enough. I made excuses for them so naturally it felt like breathing. Now, sitting there with my chopped hair and that sticky note, it hit me. They hadn't forgotten. They just didn't care. I checked my phone. One message from Chelsea, "Be on time. Don't make this about you." The audacity almost made me laugh. Almost. I texted my best friend Jonah. Me. They cut my hair. While I was sleeping. Jonah, what the actual hell? Me, I don't know what to do. Jonah, sit tight. I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere. Within 30 minutes, he was in my apartment. Standing in the doorway like he'd walked into a crime scene. Liv, he said quietly, his voice catching. Did they seriously? I nodded, eyes welling up. Not from the hair. From the violation. He crouched beside me, taking my hand. You know this isn't just about appearance, right? They're trying to erase you. Diminish you. I swallowed hard. It worked. Only if you let it. Jonah stood. Suddenly serious. Do you still have those voice notes? The ones you record after therapy? I blinked. Yeah, why? He paced, thinking. I remember that one time after brunch with your mom. You recorded her saying something awful. You told me. About you being a distraction. My stomach dropped. Oh my God. Exactly. We spent the next hour combing through the Notes app on my phone. I had dozens of recordings. Some rambling. Some tearful. Some sharp. And then we found it. March 7th. I hit play. Mom's voice, cold and flat, she always tries to upstage Chelsea. I told Greg we might need to do something about it. Dad's laugh, maybe we cut her speech. Or her hair. Then laughter. Real. Casual. Like they were planning brunch, not sabotage. Jonah sat back slowly. You need to play this. At the rehearsal dinner. Not to hurt them, to liberate yourself. I was shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. This wasn't about ruining a wedding. This was about reclaiming my voice. And it started with the truth, raw, unedited, and finally, loud enough for everyone to hear. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for 6:30 p.m. At an upscale vineyard outside Tacoma, one of those places that looked like a European postcard but smelled like entitlement and Pinot Noir. I got there early. I wasn't dressed for drama. Just a black wrap dress and the short, sleek haircut Jonah had helped even out. No makeup, no earrings, not even mascara. I wanted them to see my face, plain, unfiltered, unbothered. Like a witness at a trial. The venue was already buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses. Guests were milling around in pastel linens and polished shoes. Drinking overpriced wine and pretending to like each other. Chelsea floated through the room like a queen in her soft pink rehearsal gown, glowing, smiling. Soaking in every compliment like it was air. She hadn't seen me yet. Neither had my parents. I stood by the archway, invisible again. But this time I was choosing it. Liv. Jonah whispered beside me, you sure you want to do this now? I nodded. If not now, then when? He handed me the phone, already cued to the recording. My hands trembled just slightly. But I wasn't nervous. I was ready. Tired. But ready. The wedding planner clinked a spoon against a glass to call everyone's attention. Let's settle in for a few toasts. First up, Olivia Carter. Our maid of honor. Chelsea turned, eyes locking onto me for the first time that day. Her smile flickered. Faded. She didn't wave me forward. Just waited. Expecting a performance. I stepped up to the mic, cleared my throat. I wasn't planning to speak first tonight, I began, but it seems I've already made an impression, just by showing up. A few polite chuckles. I looked directly at my parents. See, I've been told a lot about how this day isn't about me. How I shouldn't distract. How I should be grateful just to be invited. Silence. No more chuckles. But something happened that I think everyone here deserves to know. Because this story, it isn't just mine. It's one too many people carry and bury for the sake of family peace. I took out the phone, tapped play, and held it up to the mic. Mom's voice echoed through the speakers. She always tries to upstage Chelsea. I told Greg we might need to do something about it. Then Dad's chuckle, maybe we cut her speech. Or her hair. Muffled laughter. Gasps. Utensils dropped. A wine glass cracked somewhere near the back. I didn't flinch. I paused the recording. 3 weeks ago, I thought this was just a joke. Now I know it was a warning. My mom's face went pale. Chelsea was frozen, mouth parted like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the script. Last night, I was drugged and violated in my own bed. My hair was cut without my consent. By the very people who raised me. My voice didn't crack. If anything, it got steadier. I don't share this to ruin a wedding. I share this to reclaim a voice that was stolen from me long before the scissors came out. Someone near the front stood up, my Aunt Teresa. Is this true? She whispered to my mom, who didn't answer. I stepped back from the mic. The room was still. Tense. Like a storm had just blown through and no one knew if it was over. Jonah took my hand. You did it, he whispered. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when the planner rushed over to cut the mic. Not when my dad stood up and shouted, enough. This is not your stage. I looked at him, really looked. At the man who had once told me my voice was too much. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. Then maybe, I said, voice low but steady. You shouldn't have handed me the script, if you didn't want me to rewrite it. I walked out without looking back. Jonah followed. Outside, under the vineyard lights, I exhaled like I hadn't in years. The air was cool, the sky a fading blue, and for the first time, I wasn't carrying someone else's expectations. My phone buzzed. Notifications pouring in. Someone had recorded the whole thing and uploaded it. It was already climbing. And that's when I realized this wasn't the end of anything. It was just the beginning. By morning, the video had over 2 million views. By lunchtime, it was on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and the front page of Reddit. Headlines popped up everywhere. Maid of honor hijacks wedding with family bombshell. She played a recording that shattered a perfect day. Someone even started a hashtag let her speak. Chelsea's wedding day was no longer just a wedding. It was a cultural moment. Jonah and I sat in my apartment watching it unfold like spectators at someone else's life. I can't believe how fast it's blowing up, he said, scrolling through a flood of DMs. You've got verified accounts reposting this. Influencers. Therapists. Even that one news anchor who got cancelled last year just tweeted about it. I didn't know how to feel. There was no manual for going viral, especially when the thing that made you famous was your trauma. There were messages from strangers. Thank you for saying what I never could. I thought I was the only one whose family weaponized silence. This gave me chills. There were also hate comments, of course. Accusations of attention-seeking, ruining a sacred day. Fabricating for clout. But they were buried under thousands of likes and replies defending me. By day 2, the video hit 5 million views. And that's when the email came. Subject, let's talk. From Abigail Flores, Creative Director, Rise Agency. At first, I thought it was fake. But her LinkedIn was legit. Her agency had done campaigns with brands like Dove, Aerie, and a recent viral project about women reclaiming their image after emotional abuse. Her message was short. Olivia. Your story isn't just powerful. It's necessary. We're launching a campaign next month called Uncut Stories, spotlighting women who have been silenced by family or culture and found their voice. Would you be interested in collaborating? Abigail. I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes. Jonah finally nudged me. Say yes. I did. With shaking hands and a racing heart. But I said yes. The next few weeks felt like a dream. I was flown to LA, given a stylist, a creative team, and a platform. The photo shoot was the first time I had ever felt seen. Not because I looked good, but because I was finally allowed to take up space. We shot portraits in natural light, no heavy edits, my short hair unapologetically center frame. There was a segment where I wore a gown made of stitched-together fabric strips, each one printed with actual viewer comments from the video. Another set had me standing in front of a wall full of mirrors. None of them reflected my face. Just quotes from women who'd messaged me. Stories of silence. Of being told to tone it down. Of being cut, too, not with scissors, but with words. The campaign launched under the tagline, "You can cut hair. You can cut ties. But you cannot cut truth." And it exploded. Within 48 hours. Calling it a masterclass in boundary setting through narrative. I wasn't chasing fame. But the world was ready to hear what I had lived through in silence for years. Then came the message I didn't expect. From Chelsea. Subject: You got what you wanted. You ruined my wedding, Olivia. Congratulations. Hope the likes were worth it. Don't ever contact me again. No apology. No accountability. Just blame wrapped in bitterness. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply button. But I didn't write back. Not because I was afraid. But because I finally understood something. Chelsea wasn't my villain. She was just the mirror that reflected everything my parents had chosen to believe. I closed the email. I didn't need her validation. Not anymore. Because for the first time I had mine. 3 months later, I stood in front of a glass storefront in my hometown. Same streets. Same buildings, but nothing felt the same. The window decal stretched nearly floor to ceiling, bold white letters across smooth glass. Power cannot be cut. Inside, my name was on the door. Olivia Carter, Creative Director, Rise Pacific Studio. The first West Coast branch of the agency that had believed in me when all I had was a shaky voice and a viral video. Abigail, the founder, had offered it almost casually on a Zoom call. We're opening a satellite office in the Northwest. I was thinking Tacoma, maybe even your hometown. How would you feel about running it? I had laughed. You're serious? She nodded. Imagine the same town where they tried to shrink you. Now you lead something bigger than they could ever imagine. I said yes without hesitation. And here I was. Opening day was a blur. Local press arrived. Bloggers, creators, even a few nonprofits that worked with abuse survivors showed up. We had music, light catering, interactive exhibits. One room was designed like a recording booth. Visitors could anonymously share their own uncut stories. We'd already collected 173 in the first 2 hours. Jonah, now officially my communications lead, pulled me aside with a grin. Did you see who just walked in? He'd left a well-paying agency job to help build this studio from scratch. Said he believed in the mission, and in me. When I asked why, he just said, because I saw who you were, before you did. I followed his gaze toward the front door. And my stomach flipped. Pamela and Richard Carter, same stiff posture, same performative politeness. My mother wore oversized sunglasses, even though we were indoors. My father had aged, not dramatically, but enough that I could tell the stress of these past months had etched itself into his face. They hadn't contacted me since the video. Not a call. Not a message. Not even an apology email. But now they were here, walking into my studio like we were going to play pretend. I straightened my back, smoothing the front of my tailored jumpsuit. I didn't feel anger. Not really. Just distance. My mom spoke first. Olivia. You look different. I smiled lightly. Yes. I do. She took off her sunglasses slowly, eyes scanning the space. This is impressive. We saw the feature on NPR. My father chimed in, clearly trying to inject warmth into his tone. We're proud of you. Proud. That word again. I tilted my head. That's funny. You haven't been proud of me since I was 12 and brought home second place in the science fair. You told me not to get cocky. He chuckled, awkward. We all say things we don't mean. No. I said calmly. You said exactly what you meant. You just never thought I'd remember. They were silent. I gestured toward the front desk. If you'd like to leave a comment. We're collecting feedback. Anonymous or not. We take it seriously here. They blinked. My mom tried to say something else, but I held up a hand gently. I have a room full of people I actually respect waiting to hear me speak. So if you're here to observe, you're welcome to stay. But if you're hoping for a reunion, this isn't that kind of story. They stood still. Out of place. Small. I turned and walked away. Later that afternoon, I took the mic in our small event space. A group of young creators and activists sat in the audience. Notebooks open, phones out. I began my talk the same way I began my healing. I used to think silence made me strong. That if I didn't speak, they couldn't hurt me more. But silence doesn't protect you. It preserves their power. I talked about control disguised as love. About the way trauma isn't always loud. Sometimes. It's quiet dinners and fake smiles and scissors left neatly on a dresser. People nodded. Some cried. A girl in the front row mouthed thank you with glassy eyes. Afterward, while taking photos with attendees, I saw them again, my parents, walking out the glass door slowly. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't look back. But just before the doors closed, I called out softly. Oh, and Mom? She paused, one hand on the handle. Next time you try to cut a daughter down to elevate another, just remember, scissors dull. But some girls sharpen. She left. And I never needed her to come back. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. I stopped checking my phone waiting for texts from people who never showed up when I needed them. I stopped replaying the moment they stood in my studio like strangers at a museum exhibit. I even stopped explaining myself to people who only ever wanted me quiet. Because I realized something powerful, I had nothing left to prove. The studio was thriving. We launched a mentorship program called Louder, pairing teen girls with creative mentors across writing, design, photography, and audio storytelling. Our first cohort filled up in 4 days. Girls from across the state applied. Some were dealing with difficult family dynamics. Some were simply kids who'd been told to be less. I watched them walk through our doors like I had all those years ago, unsure, eyes darting, waiting for someone to ask them to shrink. Jonah took on the boys' group, helping young men unlearn silence disguised as strength. Watching him guide them with patience and wit made me realize, this wasn't just my healing. It was his, too. No one did. We gave them cameras, microphones, canvases, and stage lights. Not to fix them, but to show them they were never broken. One day, after a workshop, a girl named Evie pulled me aside. She was only 14, quiet, with this way of speaking that made every word feel heavy and important. Miss Olivia, she said, can I tell you something I haven't told anyone? I nodded. Kneeling beside her so we were eye level. When I saw your video, I cried. Because I thought I was the only one whose mom didn't clap when I got the lead role in the school play. She just said, try not to make your brother feel bad. I took a slow breath. That's not your fault, I said. You get to shine. You're allowed. She smiled, just barely. I'm writing my story. And I'm gonna read it on stage next week. My voice isn't shaking anymore. And that's when it hit me. I thought my story was about a wedding. A betrayal. A haircut. But it wasn't. It was about reclamation. About taking back what had always been mine: voice, space, self. One afternoon, while reviewing designs for our next campaign, Jonah brought in a manila envelope. "You got mail," he said, raising an eyebrow. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, handwritten. No return address. No signature. It read, "You were right to walk away. We didn't see you until it was too late. Maybe we never tried. I hope this place you built brings you peace. And if it does, please don't let us poison it. Let it be clean. Let it be yours. That's the only apology I have left." I folded the letter and slid it into the bottom drawer of my desk. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt quiet. Like something had been sewn shut, not to forget, but to keep it from bleeding again. I just felt done. For so long, I thought I needed an apology to heal. But healing didn't come from them. It came from choosing myself, day after day. On the 1-year anniversary of the viral video, we hosted an open mic night at the studio. We called it Uncut Voices. Over 200 people came. Survivors. Artists. Teenagers with trembling hands and strong words. Mothers who finally told their daughters, "I'm sorry, I didn't know better." Fathers who came to listen, really listen, for the first time. I opened the night with one sentence. They tried to cut my voice. Now I amplify others. As the lights dimmed and the first young woman stepped to the mic, I took my seat in the back. And I realized, I didn't need to be on the stage anymore to be heard. Sometimes, the loudest legacy is what you help others say when they thought no one would listen. 1 year later, I returned to the vineyard. Not to visit. Not to reminisce. But to speak. A local university had invited me to deliver a keynote at their annual storytelling symposium. The theme? Narratives that change culture. I almost said no. The idea of stepping back into the place where everything cracked open made my throat tighten. But then I remembered, I wasn't that girl anymore. I didn't wake up scared anymore. I woke up with purpose. When I arrived, the vineyard looked exactly the same. The stone archway. The manicured vines. The too perfect lighting for photos. But this time I wasn't here to play the background. I wasn't the maid of honor in someone else's script. I was the one holding the mic, and this time, no one was going to cut it off. The room was packed. Not with family. But with students, artists, survivors, skeptics, allies. People who had watched a story unfold online and decided that silence was no longer safe. I stood at the podium and took a breath. I used to believe that strength meant staying silent, I began. That if you didn't cry, if you didn't complain, if you didn't take up too much space, maybe they'd leave you alone. Maybe they'd love you more. I paused, letting the truth settle like dust on glass. But silence isn't strength. It's containment. And I was never meant to be contained. I shared the story again, not for shock value, not for clicks, but to remind them that we all carry scissors. Some are held by others. Some we hand to ourselves. And healing begins the moment we decide to put them down. When I finished, the room rose in a quiet standing ovation. Not roaring. Not chaotic. Just steady. Like a wave of understanding. Afterward, a professor approached me. "Ms. Carter," she said, "do you realize how many young people have found their voice because you used yours?" I smiled. "I think I'm just the echo. They're the sound." On the drive home, I pulled off onto a quiet overlook. The sun was setting. The light hit the horizon like melted gold. I got out of the car and stood alone for a moment. The wind tugged gently at the short ends of my now grown-out bob. It had been a year. My hair had grown. My voice had stretched. my spirit had reshaped. And for the first time I didn't feel haunted. I felt held. By every girl who wrote to me. By every voice that stepped up behind mine. By the version of myself who didn't get applause at the debate finals, who didn't get a cake. But who kept speaking anyway, even when no one was listening. That girl? She built this. Back at the studio the next day, a new intern named Morgan stopped me in the hallway. "Hey," she said. Shy but steady. "I just wanted to say. I didn't apply here because of the viral stuff. I applied because of what you said after. About how healing isn't linear. That some days, the loudest thing you can do is rest." I nodded. Rest is resistance, too. And recovery isn't weakness. It's strategy. She smiled. "Just thought you should know, it's working. The whole not being cut thing." I laughed. "Good. Keep it that way." Later, as I sat in my office overlooking the city, I finally felt it settle, the ending. Not the neat kind. Not a movie montage with perfect closure. But a quiet resolution. I didn't need my parents to understand. I didn't need Chelsea to apologize. I didn't need the world to keep watching. Because I had already won. Not through revenge. Not through rage. But through reclamation. They tried to cut me down. They gave me every reason to disappear. But instead, I sharpened. I steadied. I spoke. And now, I teach others to do the same. And they're speaking now, louder, bolder, more uncut than ever. Every story they share is another thread that weaves this community together. That's the thing they never tell you. Power doesn't come from being louder. It comes from being heard, finally, fully, without permission. And once you learn that, there's no going back.